It was the spiciest game. I was on co-coms and like sometimes I got to half time and I was thinking, God, if this game is going to be exactly like the first half, I don't know how to keep on saying the same thing over again.
Arsenal creating chances, not taking them. Chelsea not playing well, but still winning.
100%.
What would we say on the pod?
It kind of felt a little bit Groundhog Day going into the second half. And then the most controversial game of the season exploded into my eyeballs. A game that many are saying should have finished 3-1 to Arsenal. There's a lovely video of Renee Slegers walking up to the referees and shaking her head at them without saying anything while shaking hands. And then obviously... there
was a little bit of finger pointing as well. And
there was a lot of shaking and not very impressed people.
Beth did that as well coming off the pitch. I caught that she was being substituted. A bit of a wagging the finger at the fourth official. Let me tell you something.
There was a lot of emotions post-match. Especially with Slegger. She said a lot of respect for referees because it's not easy. We're looking at video. If you ask me, we need justice, and that's why I think VAR technology can help. Sonia Bonpastor agreed with that. Let's talk about the first opening minutes, but then we need to start somewhere before we get stuck into the unfolding what happened.
We should talk about the football because frustratingly, the headlines are about the refereeing and VAR and everything else, and actually it was a really enjoyable game of football for the neutral to just kind of sit back and watch these two teams go at each other. And I really enjoyed the build-up. Both managers spoke about how good training had been that week, and it seemed to be a theme across a number of teams saying this has been some of the best training we've had this week. So whatever was happening in mid-November, it seemed to be clicking for teams. But you're right, first half I kind of thought this is going to be the same story again. I thought Arsenal what was funny was Erin Cuthbert spoke to her last week. She expected Arsenal to come out quickly. She's like, we know we're going to have to weather a storm. They always come out quickly at the Emirates. It was the other way around.
They did kind of a little bit though. There was moments of high press.
Yeah, but Arsenal do that anyway. I felt like first 15 minutes or so, they were trying to figure out Chelsea. I don't know whether they expected Chelsea to start with a back three or what that might have been. Took a little while for them to figure it out. I thought the midfield felt very exposed because obviously Kim Little was injured. So it just felt too front-footed. It was lacking that kind of defensive mindset. You'll see that from the Alyssa Thompson goal where they parted like the Red Sea and she just ran on through at 100 miles an hour.
Well, that is one thing I definitely want to talk about. She celebrated her 21st birthday the day before. I know it's madness. We can't talk about how old we are again. But it did feel like every time she got the ball, she kind of felt like one of those target players. You get the ball, you look up, Millie Bright looks at her, Alyssa Thompson, get the ball to her, and then she runs into space. She creates so much chaos and like franticness from Arsenal.
People are afraid to tackle her.
I think it's that, which is wild because she's like quite slight in frame. Like you think like just, but you could barge her body off the ball, but like she's solid as well. And then she kind of like, she laid out the ball to the right hand side, received the ball back, and then a beautiful dink over the head of Daphne van Domselaar. She was not expecting it. She was a little way off of her line. In a way, I think I've tried to have a look at this a few times, and I think she was kind of off her line, anticipating that she'd have to go out and meet the ball at some point. Like maybe like it was going to be like a shot that she could block, like use her body and kind of narrow down the angle and kind of do that. But at the same time, the technique on Alyssa Thompson, he struck first time, the loop on it, and it just arched down beautifully. It was absolutely perfect.
I kind of wondered if DVD had thought she was closer to her line because she just didn't seem to react or make any movement to step backwards to kind of combat the flight of the ball. So it was almost like she thought it was going to... She thought it was going to go over because she thought she was closer to her line. And it was almost like, as it reached the peak of its arc, she was like, I am further out than I thought that's going in the goal. Do you know that kind of way? It just seemed to hang in the air for so long, and there was like no reaction to it. Like...
It was a beautiful goal.
That
obviously,
technique to do that though and spot her off her line so quickly.
100%. I thought she was like the spiciest character in the Chelsea line. Then I thought, obviously, like we've spoken again about like how teams are like the most vulnerable after they've scored. Like I was expecting Chelsea to like pick up the ball, go again. I was like, you can't rely on you can't rely on a 1-0 lead. There were a couple of really good opportunities from Arsenal. There was one from the corner that kind of deflected off of Erin Cuthbert where she tried to clear it. It kind of like she spoofed it kind of with the outside of her foot, and Hampton kind of like just managed to get it or so. But yeah, it felt like they were kind of inviting trouble by just allowing Arsenal to play around in the back. But I think the only winning grace, or the only thing that kind of saved them, was that there was that Arsenal just weren't clinical enough. And I don't mean clinical enough in front of goal, but clinical enough in like really basic passing. Like even someone like Mariona Caldente, you're thinking, well, everyone knows that you're like one of the best players in the world, but even her dinking a ball out to the right hand side, like no pressure on her at all, it's going off.
Yeah.
That's what I couldn't understand. There just wasn't.
They were almost masters of their own downfall a little bit. And I do think it was a combination of Chelsea sat off a bit, but I also think Arsenal grew into the game and recognised, okay, we've figured this out now. They started engaging their press much better. And with both Blackstenius and Russo on the pitch, they're both so good at engaging that press and reading each other really well. And Beth Mead, I think, as well, and Caitlin Ford. I thought Caitlin Ford had the doing of Lucy Bronze every single time.
Oh, it was...
But that end product was lacking, and that decision-making was lacking. And, you know, there was one great example where she took off up the sideline. You know, I think she got around Lucy Bronze, and she just needed to lift her head. There were 3 Arsenal players in the box. She just needed to take that quick look. But she was like, I've gotten around her, get the ball in. And it went straight through absolutely everybody and over the other side. And it just kind of encapsulated Arsenal's season a little bit, where they get into positions and then they don't make quality chances out of them. I also think some of that was down to how high Chelsea were engaging defensively. So they were defending, you know, from the front, where they were trying to prevent Arsenal penetrating into the Chelsea box. And actually they were getting in and around it, but because the players were dropping back and defending from the front, it was making it so difficult for them then to make those connecting passes. So a combination, I think, of both Arsenal putting the foot on the gas, Chelsea defending quite well. I thought Natalie Bjorn had a great game. You could tell she knows Stina Blackstenius, and they were finding Stina, and she was like trying to get around the defence. And it was like Natalie Bjorn was like, I know what you're going to do here. I'm keeping with you. I'm keeping you out wide. I'm making those last ditch tackles. And I thought she stood out for me in the Chelsea backline.
Yeah, definitely. A bit of a scary moment for her in the opening minutes as well, where she kind of went down, and I was thinking, oh God.
I think she might have clashed with Stina. I had them in my lens because it almost seemed like it happened off the ball. And I don't know if Stina caught the back of her ankle accidentally. I don't know what it was. But yeah, it was a moment there where you were like, oh, if they lose Bjorn, that could be a real problem.
This is early days. Well, talking of Stina, we've got to discuss the goal. Start of the second half, Stina Blackstenius scoring what the whole stadium thought was an equaliser. Whole stadium erupted. It was absolute chaos. Flags, banners, everything, shouting, screaming. Songs are going off.
Well, it's going like the whole track was done and dusted.
Everything. Everyone was on their feet. It was incredible. And then the referee rules that she controlled it with her hand from. So it goes in from the corner. It kind of bounces off a player, reaches her, and then she like boots it into the roof of the net. There was absolutely nothing the keeper could have done about it at all. The replays have shown that it's come off of a hit, but there was a period of time for about 5 minutes where the ref didn't call it and then called it.
Long?
It felt like forever, because everyone in the co-coms was saying, well, I don't know quite what's happened or how it's been called back, because there was just no. We were seeing the replay of like the goal, but we were like, okay, there's no issue here. So like, what's happened? Has something happened off the pitch?
I assumed it was offside.
Yeah, I couldn't work it out at all. Super controversial. Obviously, it agitated the crowd to no extent. Renee Slegger's obviously feeling very aggrieved about it, and the players feeling very aggrieved. You could feel it.
I think 54,500 people watched it and said that's definitely a goal. Maybe some Chelsea fans are like, no, maybe it was a handball. I don't know. Nobody seemed to be calling for a handball, including Lucy Bronze and Millie Bright, who were closer to Stina than you and I are right now, and we are about a metre away from each other.
No protests.
There was nobody was calling for it. No, and in the time it took, because I didn't actually see the ref blow the whistle, give the goal, not give the goal, whatever it was. It just seemed to be this really long extended period of Arsenal celebration. Chelsea were down, like frustrated, walking back towards the halfway line, like played out entirely, like everything. Like we were fine. The flags were waving. The flag bearers were like, okay, we've done the celebration, put the flags down. And then it seemed like there was a collective, from the crowd when Chelsea lined up for a goal kick. So for me, in that instance, you can't be 100% sure you've seen something that hasn't happened, firstly. But if you're not sure, sometimes there is a case of reading the cues. Nobody is protesting a handball.
Definitely.
That might tell you that there wasn't a handball. Particularly, you telling me Lucy Bronze and Millie Bright, if there was even a sniff of a handball.
Protest all day.
Absolutely. I mean, in the women's game, they give handballs when it hits your boob. You know when that happens? So annoying. You'd think that our hands are like up here or something. Like, there is often mistaken handballs, and people will call for it when it's not. Nobody called for it.
All
so
day.
I can definitely understand the frustrations, because the timing of that goal, and yes, people would say, yeah, but still, even if, then what about this? And Palova would have been red carded and this would have been offside. You don't know that all of that stuff would have happened if Arsenal had gone 1-1 at 53 odd minutes or whatever it was. It would have been played out in a very different way. So I don't buy into but even if, then that, I don't buy into that. That should have been a goal and it should have stood. So I can understand being aggrieved.
The drama didn't stop there, because obviously then you have Alessia Russo's equaliser coming just 3 minutes remaining. Chelsea fans online, and I've had to have a look at this again, arguing whether she was offside. And to me, it does look Like she probably is. I mean, they're difficult ones to call, completely understand. But yeah, obviously that goal is even more controversial for the Chelsea fans. And then you had the Victoria Palova incident, like putting in the high boot on Kira Walsh. Obviously, I don't think there was any intention behind it, but it was a dangerous tackle. And then you got the final disallowed goal, even more kind of difficult to judge without the proper lines on replay. You had obviously respected commentator Robin Cowan on Sky saying that she was onside, with Niamh Charles on the far side of the pitch looking like she was playing her onside. So that's another bit of kind of controversy there, because Arsenal walking away from that game thinking, actually, we were robbed. And I've kind of got to agree a little bit there. And a lot of people are now saying, well, some of our listeners are kind of saying, okay, well, we don't want VAR. That was like the go-to response from what happened on the pitch. And then over on the Upfront group chat in the Football Ramble Discord, Irish Kev said, I get the anger, but how do you teach part-time refs this multi-million-pound system? Would it not help to pay them properly first? So it's kind of it's reignited and reopens the VAR debate.
It is a knee-jerk reaction. We don't talk about VAR when we don't have controversial moments. And there are plenty of complaints about VAR. The technology could do the job that is needed. It's actually the application of the technology, I think, that tends to cause the controversy. There are a lot of areas in the game that need to be invested in, and I don't know whether VAR is top of that list when you've still got part-time referees, right? So I do think in terms of priority, we do need full-time referees. I also think they need the best tools available to them to help them do their jobs to the best of their ability. There are going to be human errors. They are going to happen. They're not always going to be caught. VAR isn't necessarily going to catch all of them. So it's not just some magic fix. But I'd also say there are other tools that are more cost-effective and less intrusive that could also be considered too, and that are being trialled in football elsewhere. And I'd spoke about it after the under-17s, the VAR Lite, the video referral system, which doesn't require as much manpower, it doesn't require as many cameras, allows for teams to have 2 referrals if they think a decision is wrong, because every team, doesn't matter what ground you're at, they all have iPads with the game in front of them where they can go back and rewind and look at things and rewatch. That is possible in whatever ground they're being played at in the WSL.
And you've got the new Apple contract as well. More tech in the WSL.
Yeah,
coming.
But the point is that access is readily available. The idea of VAR Lite with that, you don't need more cameras. What you do have is essentially a laptop where the referee can go over and check something back, rewatch stuff back, right? Very easy. You don't need a whole room full of people. And if you get the referral right, literally what would happen is, say that happened and that goal was disallowed, Renee Segers would go up to the 4th official and say, I want to refer that. I want the referee to come back and look at that because we believe that decision is wrong. He tells the ref. The ref immediately comes over, looks it back on the laptop and goes, that was not a handball, goal stands, right? So it's not this kind of process where everything plays out, you're about to kick off, and then the VAR team go, oh, this might not be right. We need to look at this from 17 angles. And then once we've looked at it from 17 angles, then we'll go to the ref and go, actually, now can you go and look at it from... And you're like 5 minutes later. So it's much quicker. We also had someone message about what they do in rugby, TMO.
Yep.
Things are played out live on the big screen for the referee to watch. It also provides that clarity for fans in the stadium. We're all looking at it. It's interesting, isn't it? But, you're seeing what's happening. You're seeing whether it's controversial or not. You've got a clear idea of why the referee's making the decision they're making. So there are other options. We don't immediately have to go down the VAR route. But I do think priorities-wise, yes, we do need full-time referees as well. I don't think it's either one or the other either. You could be investing in both, perhaps. We could have goal line technology, for example, which is, or what's that semi-automatic offside, whatever the hell it's called. There's so many little bits that could just contribute to making those decisions a little bit easier for the referees to make.
100%. I think when you look at, so I was trying to have a look at the actual cost of implementing this and in terms of the priority list. So you're looking at about £12 million roughly for the league to kind of implement this. And obviously you've got to maybe factor in there's going to be an extra couple of million for stadiums that just are nowhere near the standard of your Emirates or whatever it is. So that's the kind of cost that you think could be implemented into, like you said, kind of training up the referees and bringing them up to standard, or other forms of technology. Like the WSL does feel like it's more creative. It's kind of coming up with new ways to do things like this playoff system and things like that. So I do think it is on the cards, but I think we have to look at the impact of what this decision actually means, or the lack of getting these decisions right actually means, because we all have come so accustomed to Chelsea winning the league. This is one of those moments that you think, okay, well, if Arsenal had taken, is it going to come down to that point? Is it going to come down to the end of the title race being that one point that Arsenal, those 2 points that Arsenal missed out on getting potentially, like the point that that Chelsea actually won, like you just don't know. Or is that going to be the difference between Arsenal making the Champions League? Like it's the monetary impact, the significant impact that it has on the players not being able to have these experiences because of decisions like this. Like it's so flipping key. So I think that's like my
gripe.
Yeah, about it. But also at the same time, what I do want to say, like I know this is kind of reignited. There's been so much anger and frustration at the referees. They're obviously doing their absolute best on the pitch. Like no one goes into no referee goes into a game thinking, I'm going to absolutely shit up this game.
Yeah.
Like you just don't. Like you know that you're going to get so much backlash. You know there's going to be potentially abuse that comes off the back of that. What I didn't like, and I know people are going to say, oh, you're infantilizing the game and things like that, but I really didn't like the crowd. Like there's 3 women walking off the pitch. Like they know that there's some controversial calls that had to be made. There was booing, there was shouting, there was taunts, there was all kinds of things. And I know that a part of that is, it's the drama of the game. Like this is what you want. You want people to, pledge their allegiance to, Arsenal. You want people to be tribal in like how they're feeling, like, to create those kind of atmospheres. But also at the same time, you have to think about the atmosphere that you're creating for those people who have to do that job. And like even like the young girls and boys in those stadiums thinking, why the hell would you ever want to become a referee when you're faced with like that much like hatred and abuse? And I just think like there's ways of doing things. I agree 100% arming them in the right way to make sure those decisions, like the bad decisions are less and less. But let's just give a thought for the actual people behind the decisions. Like they're not Chelsea fans, all right? They've just gone out and tried to do their job and got it wrong. But I think, it just felt uncomfortable for me.
What I found interesting as well was just like some of the responses to it. So when the BBC Women's Football show came out, they decided to draw their own lines and they decided definitively that this was offside and this was offside. I'm like, you can't definitively draw those lines because we haven't got the right camera angles. So you can't be definitive about something when you're drawing a line from behind. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? So stuff like that, even just the reaction from the players where Chelsea players were saying like really hard fought draw. Arsenal players were like, should have got more out of that game. I think that's quite telling as well. I've even seen, and this is going to shock you.
Go on.
I have seen some Chelsea fans saying Arsenal were robbed, and that shocked me.
Christ.
That shocked me.
Die Hard Blues, I bet, as well.
Honest, look, maybe they were looking for engagement, and that often happens. That rage baiting on TikTok, where you just say a really controversial thing to get engagement. But I was surprised when I saw that. But look, it's again frustrating that that's what we're talking about because it was a very enjoyable match to watch, and
it was good fun.
Part of me does kind of feel a bit for Renee because she looked so bereft at full time. We've talked so many times about Arsenal creating chances and not putting the ball in the back of the fucking net. Just put it in the net. Shoot the ball. I can understand.
They did.
And I understand when you're frustrated as a manager going, the game plan is working to the point where you're getting these opportunities. Now they're putting it in the goal. Doesn't count. I'd be like, do you know what? Here's my badge. Bye. I can't be doing this shit now. Go out of that. There was just a real kind of like, I don't even know if they did a huddle straight away. It just felt real like, I don't even know what to say. That's what it seemed like from her. And to be fair, she spoke so well afterwards in the media. I'd be raging. She just seemed like, what do you do?
I had a picture there of Renee Slegers putting her badge and her gun on the table and going,
her gun.
Enough's enough now. I'm done here.
I've done my time.
Either way, the result does mean that Chelsea's unbeaten run is now 33 games in the WSL. One more will beat their own league record. But Man City are top of the WSL after they beat Everton 2-1. I mean...
which was also a great game.
Savour it, City. Savour it. Like we all are. It's just nice to see a little bit of difference this week. Another big game.
Another one.
Man United suffering their first defeat of the season in the WSL. Aston Villa putting out such an impressive display against a top tier side after that draw against Arsenal in September. They had just 36.5% of the possession. I mean, we kind of messaged each other at half time because obviously we were talking about the controversy in the Arsenal Chelsea game.
We were.
And then I said, I think we're going to be in a good position to talk about the Villa Man United game if it stays 1-0. And
what did I say?
You said, but it probably won't stay 1-0.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to probably, like, we can copy and paste that and get that.
I'm fine with that. I stand by that.
It was
I don't know that's controversial.
It was a bit of an upset for Man United
100%.
going into this one. I mean, Rach, what did you kind of make of it? Because it's good in a way. It creates jeopardy. It creates this kind of, not all the top teams are going to have the easiest runs going into Christmas. And Villa, I think, despite having the possession, I think they had some really clear-cut, decent chances.
Well, you say that. They had, basically half the possession of Manchester United. They created 14 shots to Manchester United's 15, with 3 on target to Manchester United's 4. So they were as efficient and effective with the ball with half the amount of possession.
More efficient. Well, they won.
Well, quite. But I think what's been most interesting about these clubs is you're just seeing more of a confidence in the game plan that they're being asked to play out. They've less fear when they come up against these big teams. And, you know, your Evertons, your Villas, you're going into these games with not great records, you know, pretty poor records when you look at it. And, you know, all those stats and stuff arguably don't mean anything when the next game comes along, because it's a new team, it's a new day, it's a different manager. And, you know, I'm pretty sure they were hammered 4-0 by Manchester United last season. Natalia Arroyo spoke about how much she enjoyed the way Manchester United played. It was something that she watched very closely when she first joined the WSL. But I just thought, yeah, game plan wise, they were so diligent defensively. Everyone knows their roles. They know exactly what they're doing. They're so quick on the counter-attack. I think your Chastity Grant, Kirsty Hansen, you know, they're so dangerous on the wings. And as I said, efficient with chances. And there was a moment, you know, I touched on it earlier about that Caitlin Ford moment where she got into the box and sent the cross in. You watch that Kirsty Hansen early on, maybe 20 odd minutes in, bombing it down the wing, picks up the ball, looks up and sends a perfect pass to Mullet, who takes a first time chance. Fallon Tullis-Joyce saves it. And I'm just like, it's those like little moments of lift the head, just pick out your player. They all knew where each other was going to be. And it was that effectiveness of the game plan of knowing we're not going to have a lot of possession. When we do, we need to be good with it.
Definitely. I think that was the frustrating thing, is that they got themselves into like these absolutely goal scoring opportunities. And then, like you said, the Hansen Mullet kind of like this combination play was absolutely amazing to see. Both kind of just singing from the same hymn sheet. But then that first that first opportunity, then just straight at Fallon Tullis-Joyce. And you're thinking, God, either like she has so little time to react, putting it left or right by like half a metre or so. And you've got a really good opportunity there. But they then did pounce on another opportunity and getting that goal. I mean, you could see how much it meant to them. It was such a well thought out goal, such a great finish.
Mary Taylor didn't know what to do.
100%. Like, it was just like kind of like disbelief almost that they'd like got themselves 1-0 up, completely unmarked in the box after this like weak punch from Fallon Tullis-Joyce. And I've got to give her a little bit of credit. Like, she was coming through an absolute sea of bodies to try and get something in it, punched it out into another danger area, and then Miri Taylor just like,
I felt really smug because in the pre-match press conference, I asked Natalia Arroyo about the importance of set pieces. Because last season they scored from 2 set pieces. They had already, before this game, they had already scored from 4 set pieces this season. And I asked her, you know, you're probably not going to have a lot of possession. You're coming up against a very good Manchester United side who've scored more goals than anybody else in the league so far. How important are set pieces going to be? And she gave me a really nice answer about, you know, the work that's been done on them and stuff this season. And what did they go and score from? A set piece.
Called it first, mate.
So it's, you know, I just think game plan wise, this is just, as I've touched on, tactically, teams are getting better, managers are getting better. Yes, of course, the players are there's more quality, but, you know, just the kind of bedding in of a really clear game plan, players being more effective in executing the game plan, believing in it, you know, not getting flustered when Fridolin Arolfo's running at you at 100 miles an hour like a Champions League winner. They're so diligent. And I think that is going to stand to them because, yes, they shipped 3 goals against Everton, but they have been quite good at defensively, which was an area they struggled with last season.
I think it was that, like, United did have some like really decent efforts, but it just felt like they were throwing their bodies, heart and soul behind everything that was going. And I thought, do you know what, Rachel Williams, like, how many...
The commentators said it. You know, press the emergency, but break glass, press emergency, get Rachel Williams on.
Literally that. And I was thinking, okay, like this is like squeaky bum time. You've got the Rachel Williams, like you've pulled that card out of the deck, your joker's on the table, and then all of a sudden she pops up with like 2 really clear, decent chances, aerial balls. You're thinking she's going to get her head on these and absolutely bury them, but they just weren't good enough. Essentially,
that was what was lacking, was the quality of the opportunities. Man United didn't have their first shot on target, I think, until the 64th minute, maybe, which is crazy. And then, to be fair, they did have some very good kind of how it didn't go in kind of opportunities. But again, then, you know, for an Aston Villa, the longer the game goes on, where they're in the lead, the longer they keep these balls out, the more confident they are, the more willing they are to put their bodies on the line and defend in whatever which way possible. And I think that's, ultimately that worked for them.
Yeah, I absolutely rate it. And then there was this kind of last ditch attempt from Fallon Tullis-Joyce right at the there was a corner at the end of the game, and then you could see her kind of running up the pitch, and then she stands right in front of Sabrina D'Angelo, who is obviously a lot smaller than her. Sabrina can't see a bloody thing as the corner's coming in, and this corner also goes and hits the crossbar. I thought Sabrina D'Angelo just about gets a hand to it, but I don't think she does actually. But she's in the right space. But I was thinking if that goes in, that would have
been unreal.
What a bloody moment.
It was so interesting though. The longer the game went on, as I said, the more confident Villa got, but it almost felt the more desperate United got. You know, it got scrappy, and they found themselves in the box with the ball and was swinging a foot at it, and it just felt really kind of desperate. And ultimately, a first loss of the season, which is coming from Aston Villa, and this is what this league can throw up at you. I
think Aston Villa have always come back to be the disruptors again. You know, there was that kind of banana skin, I think you called it, those banana skin teams, and Aston Villa kind of they dropped off of that a little bit last year, and now it feels like actually they've already got the draw against Arsenal. They've secured 3 points against Man. That's 4 points out of 2 top tier side, top
and a young
sides.
Squad as well. There's a real trust in a young squad. So imagine what they can do next season with a good season under their belt.
100%. And I think I just expected a lot more from Man United. Obviously, going into this game, they scored more goals than any other team in the league. Didn't have, like you said, Rach, didn't have a single shot on target in the first half. Mark Skinner saying it was flat, very, very flat. It just didn't feel like they were at the races, really. They had some decent possession early on and tried to kind of build some attacks. There was a couple of chances, but not really that clear cut.
It's a big week. It's a big week coming up for them as well. They've got Champions League coming up, and I'm not. That's not an excuse. I'm just saying they'll be pleased to see the likes of Galton back on the bench, Uojo, Blundell back on the bench, giving them that little bit of depth and quality, because I think that's kind of where they were lacking as well, was that quality and depth when those substitutions did come on, and just kind of failed to make the impact.
Let's have a little bit of a chat on Man United hosting PSG at Old Trafford on Wednesday night. Then they're heading to
returns.
Yeah, I think obviously it's been a bit of an interesting couple of weeks. There's been a lot of chatter. I feel like it's just about to die down.
I think it's because the interviews stopped. So
do you know what? I think it's also because we've got onto our next big thing, which is the VAR situation this weekend. So we've chosen another controversial moment.
This happens in women's football. So I was like, hold my beer, I'll take the heat over
100%, and then we'll have a pitch invader next week, and then we'll talk about security.
Don't do that because it's really annoying.
Oh, only because you're game manager and you.
No. It's really annoying for the players. It's really annoying for everybody. Just don't do it. You're not impressing anybody.
Okay, I wasn't wishing it on anyone.
Well, someone's going to listen to this and go, "I'm going to do it."
Well, hopefully, I'm hoping our audience base isn't just pitch invaders.
You wait. If that happens, we're going to clip this up and we're going to send it to the WP. What are they called now? The WPLL, the league, WSL football.
Yeah,
we're going to send it to them. Just you wait.
Thanks for that. What are you expected from Man United with PSG? Because it does feel like a very spicy fixture. Mary Earps in particular going against obviously her former club at Old Trafford. Really nice that Man United have let them in for the night. That's lovely.
They're doing it twice. They're playing Lyon there as well.
That's crazy. Gosh, they're heartwarming. Just before a lovely early Christmas gift for you guys.
It's that's coming out of your January budget. No, please don't do that. Please give them a January budget.
No, well, they've only just recovered from getting the new football boots back, haven't they, from the other game? Just excited to see Man United at this stage in Champions League football, because this is just such a massive moment for the squad. But like you said, a lot of people are calling about the depth of the squad and its ability to kind of transition from WSL football into big Champions League games.
I think what's interesting is the result of the weekend and how that's going to affect them and how they're going to bounce back from that, because we've always said this about Champions League. When teams lose and then they have a Champions League game, are they going to use that as the opportunity to kind of get them back up and running again? Or, are they going to be feeling down? Are they going to be feeling the pressure? So, yeah, it is really interesting seeing them, because it hasn't happened yet this season. Man United haven't come off the back of a loss into the Champions League. So it's a new experience again for them, and up against a tough opposition as well at Old Trafford. So, yeah, it's going to be really interesting how they, not just get themselves physically ready, but mentally ready for this one.
Are you going to the game?
I'm not, because I'm flying back from Vienna from the Chelsea game on Wednesday, and then I'm going to Toronto on Thursday. So it just felt a little bit much to stick Man United in the middle.
Get you, probably part-timer. Coming up after this, London City Lionesses get their biggest win of the season. Oh, God, you've got to give a lot of credit to London City Lionesses.
Goals galore.
Lovely little home game. I was watching the old highlights, watching the game back, and I have a fondness for that stadium, because it's where Crystal Palace used to play when I was with them. And I just the way that it looks now, I mean, full of people for a start. That was really lovely.
That's
and
nice.
It's not just, my mum and dad in the stands. That was nice. Getting their fourth and biggest win of the season against Tottenham. I mean, what a result. Everything they kind of needed. I think everyone was kind of expecting big things from London City Lionesses at the start of the season. We talked about them week in, week out for like the first few games, thinking, okay, well, what are they going to deliver? Is the expectation too high? Are we putting too much pressure on the side to, they've had all these massive signings, these record signings, like you've got WSL, super experienced players in there. Are we expecting too much? But actually, they've delivered. They've delivered pretty much what kind of people, I know they're not in the top 4 at the moment, but my God, like, they are well and truly, they've not really dropped below a mid-table position and are starting to even look at giving the top 4 or top 5 a real run for their money. I mean, this is an incredible place to be at this part in the season.
So I think I put a lot of that down to the fact that they have won the games that they won before this one. All 3 of their WSL wins came against sides that finished in the bottom half of the table last season. And all of their losses came from the other 4 games that occupied the top 4, right? So when we talk about teams disrupting and getting themselves established, we often say like, yeah, it's all well and good, like nicking a point off Chelsea and surprising everyone. That's great. But if you're losing to the teams in and around you, ultimately you're going to be in the bottom half of the table. So for them to be beating the teams that are in the bottom half of the table is really important, because then they can really build that confidence and go out against the bigger teams. And, because they suffered against some of the bigger teams. Definitely. Chelsea less so, to be fair.
Some big results.
But it does feel like, they are a well-structured team. They can struggle in phases at times to create, but like they're becoming more clinical. The relationships are building. Like Jocelyn Pressure talks about at every press conference, and I almost feel bad because it feels repetitive when we have conversations with him and we ask him how he feels the team is growing, and he's saying, look, we need time. And they do need time. But to be able to play with what feels like pressure off in terms of what's expected from them internally, yes, they're investing, but like bringing 17 players in is going to take a while. Anything above the relegation zone is going to be a success. So it's almost like that pressure off. And it does feel like they are going to improve as the season goes on and those relationships get built and they become more clinical in front of goal. And, the fact that Freya Godfrey got 2 of those goals, like what's
Crazy.
Amazing is we talk about the money spent, the big stars coming in, and it's Goodwin and Godfrey that are still getting those opportunities and scoring the goals for them as well. And yes, goals came from elsewhere, but, to be able to have that youth within the squad, still having a chance, still impacting, I think is brilliant.
I can't stop looking at the table. London City Lionesses on 12 points. And you think you're 11 points clear of Liverpool and West Ham. Like the amount of work that you've had to do to get yourself into literally slap bang mid-table when there has been teams, there's 6 other teams in the league who have been a part of the WSL for years and years and years, who have had so much experience, so much kind of time to bed themselves in. Credit to them for what they've achieved.
And I want to also credit, I touched on Godfrey and Goodwin, Sangare and Imran. I've been so impressed with. They are 19 and 21. And they stood out for me in the Chelsea game. They've been so impressive in the way that they've come in, so confident in the way they play. And they always catch my eye when I watch London City play. And to just think, I had to ask Sophie, when she told me what age they were, I was like, yeah, I need to go and check that, because that just seems crazy with the maturity in which they're playing. And a lot of that is down to, we spoke about the balance in the team, getting in these quite like experienced, mature players, maybe coming towards the twilight side of their career, and then these youngsters, and where would they find that balance? And actually it's working really nicely. Godfrey spoke about Nikita Paris, who got her 200th cap, got a goal. She also scored a goal on her 50th cap and her 100th cap. How cool is that? Like,
incredible.
There must be she must have a thing about like big moments. She's like, going to score a goal.
Yeah.
But Godfrey spoke about, it was really sweet. She was saying how pleased she was to get her first and second goal, but she also said to be able to assist Keats on her 200th appearance is as important and as big a milestone for her in her career, which I just thought was lovely. So there's obviously a really good blend, and the youngsters are feeling confident because of the players in and around them. And yeah, you're seeing that game on game.
I think it's like you have to give credit to those youngsters, though. They're obviously learning from the experienced players on the pitch, and I love the fact they're getting those opportunities. But yeah, I've got to highlight Godfrey. I mean, absolutely incredible. 8th minute.
Her second goal. The bend on it.
Have a look. 83rd minute. It was just like the curl into the far corner was absolutely stunning.
And I absolutely rate them. 3-2 up. They would be forgiven for kind of maybe sitting back and going, right, let's see if we can see this goal out. But no, they were like, nah, 81 minutes, own goal from Nilden. Like, you would have expected them to go, okay, 9 minutes to see this out.
Definitely.
We'll be grand. But no, they were pushing for another goal and absolute worldie of a fourth.
And I think it was that they were so clinical in those attacking moments. And I think it was the belief, I think, that they were going to win that game. It wasn't, like you said, just like hanging on for like that draw and like seeing the game out. But yeah, there is a belief in the squad that they can do better. And like Tottenham, it was just like, okay, well, this is another game, another kind of mid-table team. They're in and around where we are. We're going to absolutely go hell for leather on it. And they did in front of the home crowd. Like, you can tell how much it meant to the crowd as well. That was unbelievable. But going into this side of like this half of Christmas and just thinking, this is where you're sitting at the moment. I mean, coming up on the 16th of November, they've got Aston Villa away, and then they've got Brighton at home on the 7th of December. And then they have Leicester City away for the last game this side of Christmas.
They could pick up more points.
100%. Like, when you look at the kind of like table as it stands, you could be thinking, Christ, another 2 wins out of that, and you could potentially escalate yourself into a Champions League spot, depending on how the results go down.
I mean, I think them being in top 6 would be unreal.
Let's get carried away. Come on.
I'm not the carry away queen.
Let yourself go a little bit.
Never.
Let yourself go. One person I suppose we've got to talk about in the London City squad though, and former Man United player Katie Zellum, still struggling a little bit for minutes at City. She's played 19 minutes in their last 5 league games. But also,
I wonder if that was down to injury or anything like that.
No, I haven't heard anything. I haven't seen any kind of like niggles being picked up at all. But yeah, I mean, understandably, like there's competition. Like there's huge competition in the squad. When you've got 17 players that have come in at the start of the season, like it's not a case of, you know, your big WSL, your big experienced players are going to necessarily like slot straight in and fit.
And when performances are working and improving, there's, you know, do you want to upset the apple cart by making changes as well? So I can understand that
100%. And I think, yeah, I just feel really happy for London City Lionesses.
I think the importance is, and what we see from Goodwin and Godfrey and the like, is that, you know, players are going to get chances. If you're training well, you're going to get chances in the squad, and that's what's going to keep everyone hungry.
Agreed.
I know we haven't fully touched on Spurs, but I do think it's understandable. There will be hiccups along the way, and they just have the small matter of the North London Derby next weekend to look forward to. Arsenal have just announced, very sadly, that Katie Reid did suffer an ACL injury in training, which would be absolutely gutting for them, for her, you know, especially off the back of that Michelle Adjumang news as well. Seeing these youngsters pick up these really bad injuries is just, it's never nice for any player, but when a youngster is kind of finding their feet and finding their form, it's even more gutting. So fingers crossed for a healthy recovery for her.
Definitely sending love for all of us at the Upfront pod, that you get back to the pitch as soon as possible. But big love. Thank you so much for listening to Upfront. We have a very exciting guest joining us on the pod on Thursday, a Man City player who's been tearing it up this season. One of our absolute faves. So excited to have her on.